Hey gang, I'm Fahaam, your financial freedom guru. Let's turn your dreams into billionaire success stories. Today, let's dive into the fascinating life and billionaire journey of a man who isn't as commonly mentioned as Rockefeller or Carnegie, but whose influence in American finance, industry, and even government was just as powerful. We're talking about Andrew W.Mellon, a figure who built an empire, shaped economic policy, and left behind a cultural treasure that millions of people still enjoy today. His story is more than just numbers and boardrooms. It's a journey of risk-taking, resilience, vision, and the kind of long-term thinking that financial freedom is built on. Andrew William Mellon was born in 1855 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, into a family that already had its roots in banking and business. His father, Thomas Mellon, was a successful banker, judge, and investor, so Andrew grew up surrounded by the conversations of finance and enterprise that would shape his destiny. But don't get it twisted, while he inherited opportunity, he didn't inherit success automatically. He had to learn the ropes, prove himself, and take his family's legacy to heights no one could have imagined. After leaving college early, Mellon joined his father's banking firm, T. Mellon and Amp, Sons, and by 1882, he took control of it. That was the starting line of his incredible journey, the moment when he began shaping his destiny as both banker and industrial titan. Now, here's where Mellon's genius stood out. He wasn't just satisfied with being a banker. He saw banking as a platform to build something bigger, a way to finance not just loans but entire industries. Think of it like today's venture capitalists who don't just invest in companies but help build industries of the future. Mellon was one of the earliest examples of this mindset. He strategically invested in industries that were poised to grow as America entered a new era of industrialization. Oil, steel, aluminum, these weren't just random choices. These were industries that would define the modern age. Mellon had the vision to see where the world was headed, and he positioned himself at the center of it. One of his most significant business moves was his role in the founding and expansion of the Aluminum Company of America, better known as Alcoa. At a time when aluminum was considered an expensive luxury, Mellon recognized its potential for widespread industrial use. Through financing and leadership, he helped turn Alcoa into a powerhouse, changing how industries from aviation to construction would operate. Aluminum went from being a rare novelty to a vital part of the modern economy, and Mellon was right there, pulling the strings behind the curtain. But that was just one piece of his empire. Mellon was deeply involved in the steel industry, oil companies, and countless other ventures that made him one of the wealthiest men in America. His banking operations financed some of the biggest industrial expansions of the early 20th century. To put it simply, if you were talking about the backbone of American industry, steel beams, oil fields, aluminum production, there's a good chance Andrew Mellon's fingerprints were on it. His fortune grew not because he played it safe, but because he understood risk and invested where others hesitated. That's a lesson for anyone chasing financial freedom. Wealth is built by seeing opportunities before the crowd does. But Mellon's journey wasn't limited to boardrooms and balance sheets. His influence reached into the highest levels of government. In 1921, President Warren G. Harding appointed him Secretary of the Treasury, a position he would hold under three presidents: Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. Imagine this, one of the wealthiest men in America becoming the steward of the nation's finances. It might sound like a conflict of interest today, but back then, Mellon's financial expertise was exactly what the country needed. He brought a businessman's approach to government, focusing on efficiency, growth, and debt reduction. Mellon's economic philosophy was rooted in the belief that lowering taxes and reducing government debt would stimulate business growth and prosperity. He argued that if you cut taxes on businesses and individuals, it would encourage investment, expand industries, and ultimately bring in more revenue to the government because the economy would grow stronger. And guess what? His policies worked. Under his leadership, the United States experienced the prosperity of the Roaring Twenties. The national debt was reduced by billions, taxes were lowered significantly, and business confidence soared. Mellon wasn't just managing money, he was shaping an entire era of economic expansion. Of course, history is never without its complications. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, Mellon's reputation took a hit. His policies, which had worked brilliantly in the boom years, were criticized as inadequate in the face of economic collapse. Some argued that he clung too tightly to the idea of liquidation and austerity when the country needed bold spending and intervention. Whether fair or not, the Depression cast a shadow on his legacy as Treasury Secretary. But remember, this was a man whose influence extended far beyond one economic crisis. His contributions to America's financial system, both in prosperity and in challenge, left an indelible mark. After leaving the Treasury in 1932, Mellon wasn't done with public service. He was appointed U.S. Ambassador to Great Britain, where he worked to strengthen transatlantic ties during a turbulent period in global politics. Even in his later years, Mellon remained a figure of importance, not just in business but in diplomacy and culture. But perhaps the most enduring part of his legacy wasn't in steel, oil, or even government policy. It was in art and philanthropy. Andrew Mellon had a passion for art that matched his passion for finance. He believed in giving back to the American people, not just through jobs and industry but through culture and beauty. His greatest gift was the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Mellon donated both his vast art collection and the funds to build the museum, ensuring that masterpieces from Europe and America would be accessible to the public, not locked away in private estates. Today, millions of visitors walk through the National Gallery every year, experiencing the cultural treasure that Mellon made possible. That's the kind of legacy money alone can't buy, a legacy of generosity, vision, and contribution to society's soul. When Mellon died in 1937, he left behind not just a fortune but a multifaceted legacy. He was a banker who became an industrialist who became a statesman who became a philanthropist. His life was a reminder that financial freedom isn't just about amassing wealth, it's about using wealth to shape the world around you. Mellon's journey teaches us that the road to success is about seizing opportunities, taking calculated risks, and thinking not just about the next year, but the next century. So, what lessons can we take from Andrew Mellon's billionaire journey for our own paths to financial freedom? First, recognize opportunity before others do. Mellon saw potential in aluminum when others dismissed it. Second, understand that wealth is not just about accumulation but about creating lasting impact. His investments shaped industries, and his philanthropy shaped culture. Third, remember that leadership is about vision and responsibility, whether in business or government. And finally, know that true legacy comes from what you give back, not just what you keep. Andrew W. Mellon may not be as famous in everyday conversations as Rockefeller or Carnegie, but his story is just as powerful, just as instructive, and just as inspiring. He lived a life of ambition, discipline, and forward thinking, and through his triumphs and his trials, he left a mark that still influences America today. From finance to industry, from taxes to art museums, Mellon's fingerprints are everywhere. And if there's one thing we can learn from his journey, it's that financial freedom isn't just about money, it's about vision, courage, and leaving the world better than you found it.